Women special edition of International Women's Day. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is the special edition of Captured by Women, coming to you from the Accra Tourist Information Center. On the spin today, we're discussing the topic, has the Ghanaian woman done enough to press for progress and the progress that we seek? The conversation for International Women's Day this year is Press for Progress, and we're asking the question, have we as women done enough to press for the progress that we seek? Rosamond and Nana. So the theme focuses on progress. Yes. And there's a lot of conversation around what we have done to ensure that we get to where we're going or where we want to get to. What would you say are the efforts? I know we've done a lot. I mean, when we think about how much effort there has been into the advancement of women, the women's movement, empowering women, there's so much that has been done. So many women can be mentioned and so much effort has been put into it. But what can we say we've done as Ghanaian women to ensure that we progress in the direction that we want to go?
I think that I would like to take it first of all by looking at some of the social institutions that we have and try to see what we've been able to achieve looking at each. So let's say in the area of politics and governance. I mean, I know that anytime we have the election season coming up, there's a lot of effort and drive by CSOs, NGOs, women's groups, to, at the grassroots level, to try to get women to participate in politics. But at the end of the day, we realize that the number of women who end up being parliamentarians is not where we were hoping, what we were hoping for. And I once read a research that sought to find out why women were largely disinterested when it comes to participating in politics. And it pointed to a number of things. One was lack of morale, lack of family support, the fear of being insulted in public, knowing how tricky and problematic politics can be. So I think that in the area of politics specifically, I think, in my opinion, that there has been some appreciable efforts to drive women to be, to be involved in that. I mean, it still needs a lot of work, but I think that Ghanaian women or Ghanaian groups in Ghana have done quite a lot of work in that area.
Okay, so usually when we talk about empowering women, it seems we're talking about people outside of women empowering women. I would like us to think about or to focus on what have women done to ensure that we move in the direction of progress. So when you talk about MPs and women in politics, we know that we only have about 12% of our parliament, our current parliament, being representing women, even though we have 51% of the population being women. So in terms of women actively participating, where do you think we are? Are we fully involved? Because you mentioned things like not having family support, that's still external. You mentioned things like, we can even talk about the affirmative action bill and how that would provide support. But as women, what are we doing?
I think women in particular have done a lot. I think the main problem is the fact that the issue is a big one, is a vast one. There's so many areas to tackle, and it still comes to the few women. I call it few because if we know the population, we know the percentage of women in the country as a whole. We're so many. We actually form quite a majority of the population, but just a few of us get to those places of, influence that we can change something, and it will take one person at a time to make that change. And I think you asked the question about what women have done for women. I think women have done a lot, but it comes to the numbers because we have so many few women in these influential positions having to now help the less influential women to come up. It will take a lot of effort, and that's where the other people who support play a role, and that's why it seems they are playing a bigger role. But unfortunately, I don't think that's the issue. It's just because the women who are actually playing that key role are few. Look at one parliamentarian or one politician having to take care of so many women in her constituency, trying to bring one person up to get to the point where she believes in herself enough to help another woman. That will take time. We know when it comes to education, not many women are educated enough to believe in themselves. I believe we have been in a position of of influence because of some training we got or some, let me say, we were just fortunate to be the ones who were trained enough to understand and believe in ourselves despite the odds. And so, Petra, irrespective of what I have as Nana Majiman, whether I went to medical school or I didn't go to medical school, I was brought up in a home to believe in myself and know that whatever I want to do, I can do. And that is why maybe I'd even say I branched off and I'm even able to sit on this platform to do what I do. It's just about empowering one person at a time. But when that person is confident enough to know that I can do it all, then it will become a chain, it will become a vicious cycle, it will spread, and then the influence will go further. Let's move away from politics. It comes to where I work, in my field of work. I've seen a change, a big change, where women no longer wait until they are dying before they come to the hospital, because they know that at least even if I have one CD and I go and there's a nurse out there who cares enough for me, who will say, it doesn't matter, we'll take care of you, then after you go and sort out your bills or come. The fact that you even came, we are happy that you made that step, and so we would help you. And then gradually it becomes a cycle. Once one person did it, it becomes a testimony. Oh, when I went to this hospital, the women there were so nice, they helped me. And so you can also take opportunity and go. And then it trickles down. But until then, if we all fold our arms and say, okay, because I'm not in that influential position, let Nano Yelitha take the lead. Let Petra Abasamoah take the lead. You get it. And before I will step in, then we will get nowhere. Every single woman has that potential. The fact that God created us to be special, we can multitask, we can do whatever it seems. We're resilient, we're powerful, we're bold. Whatever you say, I mean, empowers a whole group of people. That's your children. If you have even 2 children who you empower, who you give that responsibility of knowing that they can be whoever they want to be, the sky is their limit. Those 2 people step forth and they create a change in this atmosphere. They create a change in Ghana, and it will trickle down, be it male or female. And so I think that's where we will start off with. I'm so proud of all the women who have tried, because Petra, we've come many years down the line, and even some of the statistics still tell us there's about 200 more years to go to bridge that gap of equality. But I believe once we start, once we get to that point where it's no longer a fight, as people think it is just a ride. It is there. It is there for you to usher yourself into. It's open, just like men feel the right to, be the head, be the boss. I mean, let's not take the spiritual aspect. I'm just talking about it even in the work atmosphere. Everyone thinks when they see me as a female, I tend to be a nurse instead of the doctor. But hello, we've moved away from that, But anyway, let's move to the audience and also see what they have to say. So, of course, it's International Women's Day. We are your hosts, but of course, you are part of us. You are here to celebrate with us. So I'm coming to the table. Maybe it would be nice to share your name, and then you tell us what you think about this press for progress. Good evening.
My name is Ahusie Jesuno, and when it comes to women issues, the problem I really have with women is the fact that we are getting to accept the fact that women are their own enemies. We are not. We are not. So we should get to a point where we realize our potentials and influence our fellow women.
Thank you so much, Akusi. I'll come to you, sweet mother.
Really?
Yes, because you're in the African gear and it's nicely tied. Please tell us your name and tell us what you think about this press for progress.
Right. My name is Afi, and first and foremost, I'd like to celebrate a lot of women who've worked so much so that we can even today say we're pressing for progress. And the theme is also because we've made some tremendous progress in this sector of empowering women and making women's voices heard and placing women where I normally would say God ordained women to be. And so kudos to all the women from the fight, even before colonial rule, especially in Ghana, the contribution towards independence, and after that, the contribution towards educating the girl child. There was a big campaign. And as a young girl, I remember the song, the Send Your Girl Child to School song, and the immense contribution that song brought to us. A lot of girls are in school today, and it's very normal. I mean, once I have a little girl, once I feel she's of age, she's going to school. But in years past, and not too long ago actually past, it wasn't that simple for a girl to just go to school, So a lot of young women are going to school not knowing really the fight that a lot of women had to go through, the insults a lot of women had to go through. Some mothers had to leave their husbands because they would not agree to take their child to school. So they had to sacrifice, for example, marriage for a girl to go to school. And that girl is not the only beneficiary of that sacrifice. It meant that a lot more girls, a lot more mothers saw it as normal. A lot more fathers also saw it as normal to take their children to school. So that is to say that we have made progress. We can go into the policies. You mentioned the affirmative action. There's the domestic, which is almost like 11 years now, and all that. So we've made progress, and it's just very okay for the team. We're pressing for progress.
Right. Afiba, I'd like you to remind our young ladies out there who don't know where the fight started from. Where was the place of the women those days?
You see, maybe one thing I want to say about what you just said is that if you're a girl and you're going to school, the term feminism especially is not too beautiful. It doesn't wear high heels to a lot of girls, and it's not all made up and glam. So a lot of young girls don't want to be associated with this. Also because of the misconception, the term feminism and the owning it to be called a feminist brings a perception of being ugly, being aggressive, being all that. That is really not really it. But I always say that if you're going to school today, it meant that some women had to be ugly. It meant that some women had to be aggressive years back. It meant that some women had to be bold so much so that they were called lonely and names. So you just have to appreciate that it didn't come easy. Some of us are voting today. There's a history of women voting. And so we just have to appreciate that the cause for humanity includes feminism. And it's a social justice cause. And you should make time. I think this is what I want to add, and then possibly you can move. You should make time to understand it. Don't ride on the perception of women empowerment and feminism. Just open yourself and have a conversation about it, even in the religious sector, even in the corporate world. Open yourself to have an understanding and join the cause for progress for humanity, which includes women.
Thank you there, Afi. I'll hand over to Petra. Petra also has some beautiful ladies on the other side, and she'll find out what they think.
Hello, ma'am. So what do you think about the theme in general and what we've been discussing so far? And please tell us your name.
My name is Princess Tanya. I'm from Purple Holdings Limited. And with my mind is that I think women, as at years back, it used to be when you are trying to do something. I'm actually a woman in the debt recovery, and usually when you are called upon for a meeting or a presentation, you've been seen as this is men's job. So at the end of the day, if you are contesting with a man for the same contract, it's always quite difficult because they believe that men are the one who should be doing this. But I've come to realize that with much confidence and also seeing other women who have been in such positions, one can always make it once you have the confidence and also be able to stand out and prove that you are worth what you want to do, and then you can get the way forward. So I believe that this is a good cause, and then as much as we go on, most women will come out and also stand strong and firm to be able to do something and change what we are going through. Yeah.
So she's mentioned some very important points. One, she mentioned the fact that having role models is important, the fact that you have other women to look up to. And I must say that we're here because of so many women who've gone ahead of us. They've given us the opportunity to know that the things we want to do and who we want to be, it's possible. It's possible to be in leadership at the highest points in the corporate world, in politics, in any endeavor that we want to be in. She also mentioned the fact that sometimes there are some roles that seem to be male-dominated, or the perception is that this is a male role. And that brought my mind to something very interesting, because I went through an exercise in a program I was in recently where participants, who were mainly young ladies, were asked to give their impressions of particular roles. So they were asked, for instance, in your mind's eye, who would you say is a doctor? Who would you say is an engineer? Who you say is an artist? And interestingly, most of the young people in that meeting described their ideal doctor, engineer, or artist using the male pronouns of he. And so the fact that we're having this conversation is testament to the importance of us beginning to change those stereotypes, that this, whatever we set our minds to do, we can achieve. There's nothing beyond our limits. And so thank you very much for your contribution.
Okay, Petra, let me pick it from here. Hello, good evening. I'm Rosamond, the ma'am you are.
I'm Lillian Bruce Lyon.
I wanted to find out from you, in your opinion, do you think that we have done enough as women and achieved any significant progress in pushing for gender parity?
Yeah, we have done something, but I don't think we have gotten to the point where we are achieving gender parity. Because when you go to the schools especially, you see that the role is the boys are many. Sometimes when they start, the girls are many. But as they move up, you see the number dwindling. And at the end of it all, most of them will end up in the kitchen. You know. And therefore, for gender parity, we need to do a lot of work for us to get there. We need to educate more women. Because when you educate more women, you have less problems in the country because they understand. They are with the children, they are with the men who are always babies. Men never grow up. So with women educated, you have more women educated, I think most of our problems will be solved. And for me, as a person with disability, there is more to be done. Honestly, there is a lot more to be done for women.
So I wanted to find out, so you said that when the girls start school, I mean, as they progress, you can see that the gender gaps between boys and girls widen as from the primary level to the secondary and probably even the tertiary. So would you say that it's more an issue of entrenched cultural and social norms, that, I mean, we've battled over the years and it still is the problem accounting for this gender gaps in education particularly?
You are not far from wrong because with our culture background, when they come back from school, parents expect the girls to be in the kitchen whilst the boys are doing their homework. So they do a lot of more than the boys. And the boys are free to do whatever they like. But for the girls, they will always keep them in the kitchen. Now, well, a lot of them are flexing their muscles a bit.
Okay, all right. Let me hand back to you, Petra.
Very interesting submissions there, and we should appreciate the fact that the parity between boys and girls in education is a big issue. And I'm very excited that you mentioned that when we educate women, then the problems of society are reduced, because there's a lot of research to back that. There's research that shows that when children of educated mothers do better, they thrive, they do better health-wise, and of course, they get educated. So we're very excited that there's that perspective to the discussion as well. But we'll go ahead because there are lots of angles to this discussion. There's the education side, there's the roles, the societal roles, there's the pressure from family, there's the fact that we do actually sometimes assign roles to girls that limits them. And I always say that I only began to understand gender when I started working, because in my home, my dad never discriminated and made us feel like this was a boy's job and this was a girl's job. If we wanted to wash a car, it was okay to do that. And so we encourage that parents begin to, I'm sure a lot of parents do it, but we can do more to make the girls and the boys equal at home. We'll take a quick break at this point, and when we come back, we'll go into our next segment. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. This is Captured by Women, and today we're having the special edition of the International Women's Day. We're celebrating live from Accra Tourist Information Center, and of course, we'd like to say a big thank you to them. You can see we're coming live from the forecourt, a beautiful, beautiful, serene environment. You can host your parties, your weddings, whatever you want. Just give them a call on 0244 360 668, and you'd ask to talk to Philip, and also 0247 911 531. You can ask to talk to Nathaniel, and they'll certainly sort you out. They have conference rooms, forecourt, event center, and a performance hall. Rosamond.
Yes, thank you, Nanama. I'm sure you've seen the beautiful decor. We are looking very glamorous and beautiful here. And this has been put together by Firms Creative Decor and Gift Shop. The services they provide include rental services, decor, floral arrangements. They are located on the Spintex Road, specifically Kakalika Plaza, adjacent the Shell filling station near the Coca-Cola runabout. You can reach them on 0271 810535 and 0307 002424. Now it's time for us to move to our next segment, which is the Big Bang, and I'll now move over and hand over to Petra to take up the next segment.
Thank you, Rosamond. Welcome back. On Big Bang for today, I'm so happy to be joined by three wonderful ladies who are going to help us discuss our topic. We have Honorable Nana Oye Litha, who is the former Minister of Gender, Children, and Social Protection. She's an astute lawyer, a human and gender activist, and a very wonderful lady. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Petra.
And we also have Reverend Mrs. Josephine Pearl Fosukwachi, who is the CEO of Priceless Pearls International, a family-oriented and value-based NGO, a trained broadcast journalist, a minister of the gospel, and a social advocate and relationship guide. And thirdly, we have Afi Agbenyo, who is a well-known voice on female activism. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'm going to start with you, Honorable. You've done a lot of work. I mean, for as long as I can remember as a young lady, I've known your face, I've heard your voice, championing women's issues, and pressing for progress, even before the theme started. Are we there? We're talking about, we're seeking progress. What progress is there in Ghana? Where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going?
We are on the journey. We are not there yet, but we are on the journey. And I would cast our minds back. My uncle was 90 years, and my cousin was recounting the story of my grandmother and how my grandmother had to work, had to sell garden eggs and foodstuffs. And I was thinking about this story. This is 2 generations away. And I was thinking about it now, going to the market and still seeing market women selling economic empowerment for purposes of catering for their family. And that is like at the micro, the basic community level. And that's why I say it is still a journey we're going through. But at the same time, I remember as a very young lawyer being on a panel like this, and I was the only woman on Talking Points, and we're talking about gender-based violence in the mid-1990s. And there was a traditional leader who was a regular on Talking Point. And this is the observation he made. So if your wife is misbehaving and you decide to discipline your wife, you give her a few knocks or you beat her a bit, what is wrong with that? And this is like 2 decades. Now, I don't think anybody would go on air and say something like this. But we still have a lot of work to do. We still have, one of us was talking about, send your girl child to school, send your girl. We still have issues. You go to the rural areas, we still have issues. And that's why I'm happy about how relevant the theme for this year is in terms of pressing for progress. And I'm happy that globally the women's movement is thinking about a fifth World Women's Conference after Beijing in 1995. That will look at the extent to which we have implemented the laws. So it is still a journey we are moving on. And I wish in Ghana we would move faster. That cooking and wives cooking for husbands would not be what we'll be discussing, but it will be whether or not we have trained young women to be astronauts, whether or not we've trained enough young women to be pilots, and whether or not a Ghanaian woman will be the first African woman to land on Mars. Cooking, is that
so basic.
Is that what we're talking about? When I can walk into a shop and buy an already prepared meal, or where now I can just walk down the street if I want banku, if I want kenke, if I want wache, if I want awusa koko, I can walk down the road and get that. In this age of talking about gender equality and talking about where women should be in our Ghanaian society, is cooking the most important thing?
Thank you very much, Honorable. And I will come to Reverend Mrs. Fosukwachi, because aside of being a woman and a journalist, you're also a representative of the church. And we have had conversations where we tend to feel that apart from our societal roles being entrenched by our culture, religion has also played a role in entrenching the gender stereotypes that we have in our society. So I'd like you to touch on that part a bit. I know it can be a very dicey conversation, but we really have to talk about it, because every time there's a gender conversation, people find a way to quote scripture to limit what women can do or recommend where women should be. I'll appreciate your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much, Petra. The truth is this. Religion, as you want to call it, or let me say the Christian faith, because that's the one I'm most conversant with, it does not, actually God has not placed limitation on a woman. He hasn't. And that's why when you go to the Bible, you'll find that we had a woman who was a judge. We had women who were queens. They were held position, that was political position, if you like. We had women in various sectors. We had business women. And, so God has not placed any limitation on the woman. God, in his wisdom, actually created human being, and he put everybody and everything in its place. And now I think one of the greatest mistakes or errors that we are making as human beings is that we want to cast ourselves in other molds that are not ours. I mean, why do I want to be like somebody else? I am unique. I can do something that probably you cannot do. I should celebrate my uniqueness. And then women should learn to celebrate their womanhood. I think that's just the beauty of this. There is nothing like it. There is nothing like it. Womanhood is the best thing that God has given to a woman. And as a woman, you study, explore yourself as a woman. Look at the kind of, endowments that God gave to the woman. Like my doctor was saying earlier, as women, we can multitask. Women are very thorough with what they do. As women, God created us to nurture and to be. And I don't know why it's good that we have the astronauts. It's good that we have the doctors. It's good. Why not? Yes, it's good we have all of those ones. But you see, there are also those who are making greater strides behind the scenes. You don't see them on the public front. We all can't come on the platform, but there are other aspects of life that also matter. And when they're making greater strides behind the scenes. Now, I mean, every great man you see out there was nurtured by a woman. So it's part of our success, and we should celebrate it. It's part of what, if you see any man doing well anywhere, he was nurtured by a woman. The family unit is very, very important, and we shouldn't trade one for the other. Now, look at all the efforts that we've been making concerning the girl child education, for example. And my elder sister, for one, has done quite a lot of work on that. She's done that to a PhD level, and she's done quite a lot of projects with USAID and all that. You know, the girl child education, we are pressing for all of these things. We say, okay, girls should go to school. But then the girls go to school, and halfway down the line, the girl gets pregnant and drops out of school. So are we, as the tourists, are we going or we are coming? You see, so at the end of the day, you look at it, we make so much effort, go to school, and then she gets pregnant. And then we all know that after she gets pregnant and gives birth to one, before you know what is happening, the interest in education begins to wane. And see, and some of these things you cannot, you know, education is just the key. And we shouldn't, that means it points to the fact that there's a missing link somewhere. So we should, you know, look at it holistically, and let's be rounded in our approach, and let's make sure that we do not trade one for the other. But I assure you, God did not put any limit on the woman. You can be anything you want to be.
Thank you very much for that assurance. I would call Honorable Nana back into this conversation, because the conversation about young ladies, young girls getting pregnant in school and having to drop out of school also brings to bear the issue we have with social protection. What system should we be building around? Because we're not saying that they should go and get pregnant, but they do get pregnant. I mean, when I was in secondary school, I had classmates who got pregnant when we were in school. And one of the things my headmistress always did was she would allow you to carry the baby to term, come back and write your SSC. But it was a very difficult thing to do. What should we be doing to support young ladies who, for any reason, find themselves in that situation so that they can come back, join their friends, and life goes on? Would you say that we've done enough to support young women like that?
It's a big, big problem. That is teenage pregnancy. And there are direct links between poverty, inequality, and teenage pregnancy. So even where you look at the regions in Ghana where we have the high prevalence rate, for instance, central region, for instance, parts of the northern region, you'd realize that there are direct links. So the poorer the region, when you look at the poverty prevalence rate, and you look at the incidence of gender-based violence and the incidence of teenage pregnancy, you realize that it's high in those areas. And now you even realize that there's a lot of rape. So a region like Eastern region, a region like Ashanti region, we have high incidences of rape. And the reason why speaks to the vulnerability of that young girl. She is hungry. Her parents may not be able to feed her. She may have to rely on the man who is sexually abusing her for food. So she's exchanging a sex for food. It's a survival issue. Unfortunately, we don't have an uptake of family planning products. And that is where religion and culture and tradition also comes in. So on all fours, this girl is vulnerable. She has unprotected sex. She's poor. She goes into sex. She gets pregnant. And then she has to drop out of school. So I know the Ghana Education Service is doing quite a lot of work to address this. And the government of Ghana is being supported by DFID, the UK, the British government, to address this. And there's a big program in Brong-Ahafo. When I was Minister for Gender, we took this issue up and started some work and engagement on highlighting teenage pregnancy, and even coming up with a policy or a national strategic plan to address teenage pregnancy. And I'm hoping that the new government will take it up. But it's a huge problem, and it has implications. We're talking about armed robbery. We're talking about the rise in crime. We're talking about insecurity. But we have, on average, about 3 generations sleeping on the streets. How are they bringing up their children? And so we shouldn't be surprised if we don't put much in terms of resources into social protection, in terms of resources into social services, where we support vulnerable families then this is what the outcome is.
It does feel like a very difficult situation that we're in, but the theme is press for progress, and so we'll continue to press. Afi, I'm going to include you in the conversation at this point because you represent the younger generation, the younger, funkier, swagalicious generation. And the conversations in our generation are very interesting. Nana mentioned the fact that we're concentrating on very little things like should a woman cook for her husband and all of that, when the older generation is thinking about more difficult issues. I mean, the conversation on social media has just erupted into very, very interesting dimensions. But Afi, I'm sure you have a lot of things to say. What are we pressing for? Where are we? What should we be doing?
Okay. Thank you very much, Petra, for bringing the angle of the cooking issue. I think I want to really say that in my circle of young, funky, as you put it, feminists, there was really no issue of cooking being bad for men and women. Unfortunately, I think that is also what happens when you're having gender conversations, and especially if it comes to gender roles. When you're having conversation on gender roles, you step on a lot of feet. You step on the feet of the mother who has help from the daughter and is feeling that you're saying that the girl should have limited, maybe should share her domestic roles with her brother so that she can also go to school and learn and do her homework and all that. The mother possibly is also feeling that that means that she's going to get less help. Or it means that she's not training her daughter well because we have enlarged the domestic skills of the woman as compared to other skills. And so really there's no conversation. Cooking is a basic skill that a man and a woman should have.
And
it's a
I tend
survival
to say
skill.
that, yes, exactly. It's a life skill.
Yes.
It's like swimming. Everyone should be able to swim.
If you're hungry, you should know how to cook.
Yeah.
If you're a human being and you get hungry, you should know how to cook to feed yourself. And if you cannot, you should earn enough, work hard enough to get, as Nana said, go buy food. It's okay to buy food. It shouldn't be that much of a problem if you want to buy food. So moving from, as we all say, the basic conversation of cooking, we come to the weightier matters, as we want to put it. But domestic role sharing, even at home and in marriage, is very weighty. Because I want to give an example for myself as a wife. And currently my husband is traveled. I couldn't survive on my own. So we had to move to my mom for help. And this is it's obvious that the two of us, even with help, were taking care of the children. And that was our domestic, for example, role. So if that role is on one person, it is weighty. And it also limits her potential to excel in other areas. So equally, domestic roles are weightier matters because they, in extension, decide whether the woman will excel at the workplace, especially if she wants to, or even in school. So domestic role sharing and all that are very weighty because they have implications. There's also this conversation that we have of misconceptions of young men and what they should expect from their wives, and it's a demand and supply issue. And so it makes, and also because marriage is very weighty in our culture, and it's something that we are even unfortunately defining women by, when other women are called to be nuns, for example, and things like that, and somebody could also feel maybe in her heart that for what she has been called by God to do, she should not get married. But unfortunately, we're defining women by marriage. There is also the demand and supply part. So the women or young people are putting a lot of effort on what will make them more marriageable. Yeah. Sometimes I say that if the marriage material we are sharing, and my friends would joke about it, if mine should be pulled out, it possibly might not make her pockets square. Because the perception of what makes you a marriage material is so weighty and difficult. But I think that some of the issues really don't matter. Because the kind of conversations and conflicts you have in marriage, cooking is not part. Serving a husband may not even really be part. Because if you have a husband like mine, then he's going to get his food where it is placed in the fridge. And if I'm traveled to Navrongo to work, he's home, he's alone with the children, he feeds his children and himself. So it should not really be a big deal. Then also comes with the issue of the conversation itself and how it is received. I think that, and this is where I come in, we hide behind the Bible. Islam, the Muslims also do that, and that is the system patriarchy builds for us. We shouldn't run away from the fact that if I were a man and I had control over the Bible, if I'm interpreting it, there's a way I can interpret it to make me feel good. We shouldn't run away from that truth that some of the pastors, just because they are human beings, could want to amplify the role of a wife more than the weightier role of a husband, which sometimes scares me. To say that you should love your wife in Christianity as Christ loved the church, maybe we should be having that conversation in Christendom, whether really men are loving their wives as Christ loved the church, for example. And this will be my general take on the issues of cooking, religion, and all the murky issues that comes with it. Okay. But of course, we have the issues of economic empowerment and all that.
Petra, please, if I may just quickly add this point. You know, she made a point on domestication, which I really want to talk about. I think it was in the month of January, Nana and I shared a platform at KNUST, and I mentioned that, you know, and particularly the African woman, we make such a huge mistake because we do not allow our men to get, our male children to get domesticated. Just like Mommy said over there, she talked about that, the girls are sent to go and do the chores while the males are made to make their homework. If you don't domesticate, your male child, you are only creating a problematic husband for somebody someday. Because here is this young man, Mommy cooks his food, his sister washes his clothes, she sweeps the house, she does everything. So when he gets married, he's not actually looking for a wife. He's looking for an extension of mommy and sister.
Yeah.
Yes, somebody who will wash the clothes, someone who will clean I told my son, if you cannot take care of yourself, then you have you don't have any business getting married. So what you are not used to doing for yourself, you are not used to tidying your own room. You can't even take care of your items. And then you get married one day and then you come and the room is scattered and you say, why is everything scattered here? Why are you not doing this? But meanwhile, you couldn't do it for yourself. So this is something we should correct. There is nothing, I don't think there's any male or female role. When the family is complete, when the family is rounded, everyone is brought up to be useful to himself and to the society in which he belongs.
Let me just, and it's to say that we've had a lot of debates, pepper them, sugar them, pamper them, and what have you. Very healthy debate to the extent that we're discussing gender roles, and I think you said it that so we are discussing gender roles, and what I'm hoping is that at the end of the day, we have a clearer mind. We have a deeper understanding and appreciation of what the gender role should be. And it's gender role. So man can cook, woman can cook, depending on the circumstances of each household. And it's all for the good of a well-rounded family, a well-rounded Ghanaian family. So let's go on with the debate. It's healthy.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nana Oye Litha, Afi Agbenyo, and Reverend Mrs. Josephine Pearl Fosukwachi. This has been a very interesting conversation, and we will definitely continue the debates and the conversation because we will never run out of conversations around women and how we want to press for progress. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, you're still here on the International Women's Day edition of Captured by Women, your favorite Saturday show. But of course, it's airing on Thursday for you today. You didn't expect that. But because we care about you, we certainly made it special for you. Thank you so much, beautiful ladies, for delving into that topic. But the question still remains. Press for progress. Guys are asking, and we ladies have to answer. Where are we coming from? Where are we going? And what have we done to get to that progress that we so desire? The question still remains on the floor here tonight, and we're still talking about it. But we'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more here on Captured by Women.